So I've been following this conflict a little bit, watching some of the footage that's supposedly from the conflict and on the ground, and I believe most of it is. Checking out a little bit of MSM and what some other people have to say, and well, let's talk about it. Check out this channel if you want. Wojna w Ukrainie. And once you watch some of these videos here, the algorithm will provide you with more videos, channels from Russian speakers, Ukrainians, maybe beyond. So, yeah, clearly there is, at the very least, a military operation going on, right? The reason why I call it fake or orchestrated or whatever word you want to use is because I believe both sides are in on it, right? I don't claim to know how both sides were convinced to do this, right? But I think the common denominator is the World Economic Forum, right? And if you go look at that, watch that Happy to Listen video I talked about very briefly from the World Economic Forum, right? The fourth industrial revolution, where they want to move society, what direction. You'll see that, we'll talk about the Chechens. You'll see that one of the goals is no more war, right? So obviously, before you can convince people to accept whatever measures that will also prevent any more war, right? Well, you have to make them sick of war, right? You have to go to war, right? So this is, in my opinion, problem, reaction, solution, right? And the problem is manufactured. Both sides are manufacturing this problem, right? Like, this is so simple. NATO is expanding toward Putin, and Putin is expanding toward NATO, right? They're both consciously expanding in each other's direction, and it was inevitable that they were going to clash, right? If only by proxy, kind of, for now, right? They keep pushing, which looks like they are. This will be eventually World War III, right? I hope not, but this is what they want, right? So however they convince these people to do this, and well, seeing that they all meet at the World Economic Forum, that's probably where that happened, right? They convinced these both sides of this conflict to move in each other's direction and provoke war, right? So that ultimately one ring to rule them all, basically, right? Maybe Putin was convinced that he's going to get a large chunk of the pie, or maybe he's going to be the, emperor of the whole world, and the, Chinese president was promised that too, and maybe Biden too, right? Like, when the dust settles, maybe we'll get something along those lines, and it may take decades, it may take a century, I don't know, but it's going to be all these mini empires, I guess, or huge empires, until there's one ring to rule them all. That seems to be where they want to move the world, right? And once you have one commander in chief, well, who is he going to war with, right? There'll be no need for war. So before you have no need for war, insofar as these fuckers are concerned, because we don't have any need shit, right? You have much need for war. So complete oversimplification of what's going on, but yeah, this is just, everyone's following a script, right? Whatever their ideology is and what they were promised ultimately, who gives a shit? They're all following the same script. That is certain. So apparently there are Chechens in Ukraine right now, and they're making some kind of an appeal to their Ukrainian brothers. From what I understand, they're there to take out the neo-Nazis, which, that's a real thing. That's a real group of people from within Ukraine. And look, I'm no geopolitical expert nor a historian, but I know a little bit. And the Western people in the Western world, by and large, don't seem to know anything about, you know, the history of these neo-Nazis, Banderovцы, Banderites, right? The followers of Stepan Bandera, who have basically been genociding for decades. Well, it's close to a century now, right? Been genociding, you know, the Poles, Gypsies, Jews, Ukrainians, right, that don't agree with their crazy ideology, and the Chechens, right? So, and you guys correct me if I'm not getting some of these details correctly, right? But these neo-Nazis, they were sponsored by the West, at least at some point, maybe just recently. But they were basically, sponsored and funded by the West to. It's the same fucking playbook as Al Qaeda or ISIS, if that even exists in the Middle East, right? Those fuckers were supported to destabilize this region, right? It's the same fucking playbook. So now Putin is gonna send in Chechens, from what I understand, who have a bone to pick with these neo-Nazis, and it's gonna get interesting, right? And it's just because these Chechen dudes, they don't play, man. They don't fucking play. Neither do the neo-Nazis, but there you have it. So there's been a lot of talk about, especially on the Western side, in the Western media, about how Putin is weak, how Ukrainians are defending valiantly and just stoking the Ukrainian fighting spirit, right? And maybe the West's desire to support them, right? This whole idea of Putin, targeting civilians is all over the news, right? And I don't believe he is, but that's obviously being put out there like that in order to justify aid and maybe eventually even military intervention, right? To gain the public's support for this, right? The public doesn't like war, but you have to make them believe like they have no choice because Putin is killing civilians, and he'll be coming for you next. Now, I do believe, and there's some evidence for this, that there have been some errant rockets, right? At that one building that everyone keeps showing, residential building that got hit by a rocket, supposedly that was near an airport. So, maybe, these weapons aren't all that precise. Sometimes things happen, right? There's wind, maybe, I don't know. And yeah, there will be civilian casualties, right? There will be, when you give the civilian populace 18,000 machine guns, right? Well, what are they going to do with those machine guns? They're going to shoot each other because Ukraine is divided, right? There's going to be people in these circumstances robbing, looting, right? Because you gave them guns. Now, allegedly, from what I hear, he wants to give prisoners, release Zelensky, obviously, release prisoners. We're going to be all over the place here, right? But we'll tie all this shit together at some point. He wants to shorten or eliminate their sentences if they agree to fight, right? So, yay, let's get guns into the hands of criminals and put them on the streets, right? Zelensky, who has, from what I hear, something like 800,000 reservists, right? Military reserve, is giving 80,000 guns to first come, first serve. I mean, right? And maybe prisoners. Like, in a densely populated urban area. Gee, what could go wrong there, right? At the very least, some of these civilians would take those guns and they'll shoot at the Russian military, and then they're going to get killed, and that's going to be, quote unquote, Putin killing civilians, right? Gee, like, this is so predictable. But if Putin really wanted to target and hurt the civilian population, he would uh, cut off their food supply, right? He would bomb their water treatment facilities, maybe not internet or what have you, because they need that too, right? Probably not as much as the people, but they need that technology themselves. So maybe not that, but it wouldn't be that difficult to hurt, to besiege these cities, cut off their supply lines, and starve these people, make them, with those guns that they were given, and maybe that will happen eventually, right? Maybe just war in and of itself will cause these conditions where these people that were given all these guns are cut off from food, water, or whatever, maybe electricity in many parts, and they're gonna go get what they gotta get to survive from whomever they gotta get it from. So yeah, great fucking idea, right? But this is all orchestrated, people. Like, come on. Anyway, so I don't believe, at least at this point in time, that Putin is targeting civilians. And once you pick up a gun and start fighting the military, right? I guess that line is a little blurred, but you're no longer really just an innocent civilian, right? You just got involved in the war. So, but that's how it's going to get spun. Some of these civilians will probably kill each other, and it's going to be put on the Russians, so on and so forth. Yeah, there's going to be some, um, people getting hit by innocent bystanders, basically. Yeah, that's also going to happen. It's war, right? But you're seeing these videos of presumably Russians throwing Molotov cocktails at tanks and stuff. Like, yeah, civilians are going to die. But Putin isn't trying to target civilians, in my opinion, right? Because, well, he's not doing that, really. But the West is spinning this nonsense story in order to, well, gain support for just to have more war, right? So there's been this whole mystery of the Z on the Russian military vehicles, right? Like, what's that all about? What's the Z all about? Well, obviously, that helps to identify who's friend, who's foe, right? And especially since, and all of this ties together, I believe, especially since they seem to be using a lot of Cold War relics in this initial stage of the invasion, right? So old equipment that's basically was probably going to be decommissioned soon anyway. So they just threw that out there, right? As they're doing reconnaissance missions. They're hitting military targets. They're testing the Ukrainian resolve. They're doing a little bit of, I guess, maybe not espionage exactly, but they're going in there to test the Ukrainians and to test the waters, basically, right? This is just, they're throwing out their throwaway tanks, armored vehicles, and what have you. That's nowhere near the kind of power that Russia holds, right? From what I've been hearing from the troops that he has compiled, amassed on the borders, Putin only sent in maybe 20 to 30%, right? So maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing here, right? Maybe 5 to 10% of his military, probably even less than that, in general, right? So nothing. So to see Ukrainians doing okay, even though they're losing ground, right? But like fighting back valiantly and having successes against, I don't know, 5% of Putin's force with World War, maybe not World War II, but Cold War relics. This equipment that's way out of date and not that good. A lot of it anyway. What? Okay, yeah, that should be expected. That's not. So the Western media telling you that Putin is failing, they're just stoking. They're lying first and foremost, and they're stoking a war sentiment, right? They just want more war. They're encouraging the Ukrainians to go into war. And maybe that's working out for Putin too, right? Give them hope so that they keep fighting, right? Let's destroy the economy. Like, I don't know, let's just keep this going because war is profit, whatever, right? And so while he's sending in these, um, you know, his shit tanks, let's just put it that way, do you think he's going to send his best men with his worst equipment, right? Is that what he's going? No. So you're seeing a lot of these Russian soldiers captured, and they're fucking kids, right? Generation Z. That's my bias, you could call it, right? Because that's what I've been talking about. But these guys that are getting captured, they're like 21, 19, mid 20s. There are some older gentlemen too, but the majority of them are Generation Z. Is that what this means, right? So this is the throwaway generation, right? This is the last generation, the last natural human generation, right? They're fucking cannon fodder, right? Throw them out there. They're inexperienced. They don't know what they're doing. And yeah, they're going to fail, right? So that seems to be someone robbing the liquor store. That seems to be part of the plan for Putin too, right? Just throw away tanks, throw away people, Generation Z. And because Ukraine also has, there's always, nothing is ever all that simple, right? I try to oversimplify stuff because I don't get it entirely myself. And a lot of what I say, most of what I say is just my opinion, right? So I could be dead wrong about everything. But, right, that Z on those tanks, maybe they chose that letter because that's who these tanks and these people are. They're disposable, right? This is their final destination, right? There's nothing for them after this. They're just fucking cannon fodder, basically, right? While at the same time, marking your tanks, especially since Ukraine has some of the same equipment, from what I hear. Um, but that serves another purpose, right? But now with the Chechens, I believe, a lot of this footage is like very bad, grainy, not very good quality. These tanks are zooming past very quickly. But I believe with these, with the second wave that we've gotten to see a little bit of, I believe I saw a V, or at the very least a different letter on the tanks. So if you're interested, look out for that, right? So the Z, right? That was their final destination. They're the throwaway, the last Usyk. They're the last generation, at least natural human generation, right? Genetically unmodified. Um, yeah, let's get rid of them. Let's, right? If only symbolically, if only as some kind of a weird fucking sacrifice. I don't know. These are just thoughts running through my head. But this whole idea that Putin is failing when this is basically just like a reconnaissance mission, and using up some old shitty equipment, so on and so forth, and these throwing out there these inexperienced, not very good fighters, right? That will also give Ukrainians hope, right, and help to fuel this Western propaganda nonsense. So that works out, I guess, for everybody. I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it's nonsense. What the fuck is that? A mine? This guy, hardcore. A cigarette in his mouth. What if that ciggy falls and burns your hand, buddy? I don't give a fuck. Yeah, man, some of these people are insane. Let's see what happens. Anyway, yeah, that's nonsense. Putin isn't targeting civilians, at least not yet. But civilians will die for all the reasons why I explained. And it seems to be that Zelensky wants that, right? Because whereas he does have um, people who are at least somewhat trained, and tons of them, to give guns to them and enlist them, he's just giving guns to citizens. Like, that's so, at the very least, irresponsible. But in my opinion, it's a plan, right? And look, I don't know anything about war, right? I'm not a military strategist, but to me, it seems like it wouldn't be all that difficult to send in some high trained Chechen commandos, or supported by a drone and maybe some precision rocket strikes, right? It wouldn't be that difficult to find Zelensky and just take him out. If that's what the Z stands for, right? Get Z. It wouldn't be that difficult to take him out, right? But no, they haven't even made an attempt on his life. Maybe eventually they will. I don't know. So this whole thing is, and maybe Putin wants this, like another reason why they're moving in slowly, taking their time, is because they want to create a refugee crisis, right? So the longer this war goes on, the more refugees there will be, right? So once again, Putin, who is supposedly against this forced immigration and has criticized the West for that, and he wants to keep his population as homogenous as possible, or find a way to unite all of them, whether it be by using Russian orthodoxy to do that, or whatever ideology, some other ideology. Um, yeah, he has definitely criticized the West for creating this refugee crisis, right? So what's the game plan? Well, we all know the game plan, right? Create havoc in the Middle East, and then import these anti-Western freedom fighters into the West to stir up nonsense, right? It's the same thing happened in the United States, right? Bring in all these slaves and then release them, free them, and divide and conquer the population, right? Keep control of the population. And so that game plan has been played forever, it would seem, right? Um, the Germans did that with their march east, right? And you could say that NATO is the continuation of that, right? And now Putin is doing that with Ukrainians. Now, to the regular Western observer who doesn't understand the history of the region, and I've said this too, because I think to a large degree it's true, right? Like Ukrainians, Russians, Poles, they're all Slavs. They're the cultures are very similar on the grand scheme of things. It's the same culture, and ultimately they're brothers and sisters. That's true, but again, that takes the neo-Nazis, right? Those people, I mean, they have a whole different ideology, even if they come from the same culture. And again, they've genocided Poles, Ukrainians, Russian, like whoever stood in their way, they genocided them, right? And this is who Putin is targeting, right? So who's going to move to get the fuck out of there, right? Well, it's going to be the Ukrainians, and not just the neo-Nazi Ukrainians, right? When they finally get beaten, and they will, a lot of them, or people who support them, people of even civilians of the same mindset and ideology, they're going to go to where? Poland. And those people have a history of genociding Poles by the hundreds of thousands, right? Tens of thousands. They have a history of just shooting at children, right? just murdering children out in the open. For example, they've done all kinds of horrible things, right? So, right, if you want to destabilize Eastern Central Europe, just make Ukrainians in general mingle with the Poles, right? Even if a lot of these Ukrainians are just peaceful, normal people, right? Well, if you send them by the million into Poland and otherwise, that's going to create friction, no doubt about it. And then on top of that, you send some neo-Nazis along with that. You send some and Middle Eastern, which is what is happening. People are reporting that it's not just Ukrainians crossing, but it's also brown and black people, and a lot of them, right? And the UK now is saying we need to accept Ukrainians. Watch closely what kind of Ukrainians you're going to receive, right? You're going to get the dark-skinned Ukrainians also, right? So you're letting people out of prison. You're denazifying Ukraine, right? You're pushing these fucking genocidal maniacs further into Europe, right? This is the same fucking game plan that the West does. And Putin is playing the same card, doing the same fucking thing, right? Because they're all on the same team. Again, however they got them there, whatever they promised them, the playbook is the same. So if you get all these, you don't even need that many. Like let's say 10,000, right? Fuck it, 5,000 neo-Nazi Ukrainians, right? Who have just been giving Kalashnikovs and AK-47s indiscriminately, right? Here you go. They're not checking passports on the border. They're definitely, well, I'm sure they're doing COVID tests, right? What the fuck, man? What the fuck? They're just letting these people in. The border is like wide open. You think they're going through their bags and checking to see what's in there when there's like 10,000 people lined up? They're not even checking their passports. You think they're gonna go through their bags to see if there's Kalashnikovs in there and shit, right? So yeah, you're pushing refugees into Central and Western Europe, and a lot of them, you're teaching them how to make Molotov cocktails, giving them Kalashnikovs, AK-47s, and you know, pissing them the fuck off, right? NATO, the West has been agitating Putin, so a lot of those people don't like the West or the Western leadership. They like the things that the West has to offer, maybe, but they got that. A lot of those people got that in Ukraine anyway, and they're being sent into again foreign territory, their heads filled with all kinds of nationalistic ideas, and they're some of them are probably armed, and they're being sent into like uber nationalistic Poland, maybe super nationalistic Hungary, like this whole nationalism. There's a reason why they've been stoking this corporate nationalism in a lot of people's minds, right? There's a reason why, while at the same time mixing you, right? They're filling your head with these ideals of uh, your country for you and your brothers only, right? Your brothers and sisters. Uh, this country is ours. It's for us only. We don't want any of these immigrants, right? Filling your ideas with these nationalistic, filling your heads with these nationalistic ideas and ideologies, while at the same time pushing other nations and making you forcibly mingling you with other super nationalistic, perhaps armed people, right? What the fuck you think is going to happen, right? More conflict. So this is what it's about, right? War, and more war everywhere. So that one day you could just be like, look, in order to have no more war, we need some kind of global governance, right? And maybe for now it'll be, all of Europe, Eurasia under one banner, and the Americas under one banner. Obviously it's going to take some time, and plans will change and whatever, right? But ultimately, that's what this is about. Just create war so that you could bring in global governance and the promise of no more war, right? Problem, reaction, solution. All orchestrated, all fake. Which isn't to say that, a lot of the sentiments, whether it be Putin's sentiments or people on the ground sentiments, aren't real, right? Feelings are feelings. But you can stoke and create those. Those are feelings, right? But if you just take a cold, hard, rational look at what's happening here, the game plan is very easy to see through. Just take your fucking feelings out of this. Take your I'm a leftist, I'm a conservative, right? I'm this skin color, or this is my nationality, I'm this and that. Stop looking at this uh, through that limited lens, and think of yourself as a fucking human being, a father, a mother, a son, right? Start looking at this like an organic, natural fucking human being. Try to be rational about what's going on. And it's very easy to see what's going on, right? You don't have to understand all the details, how all the players involved are why are they doing exactly what it is that they're doing. That's really just that's like, you know, talking about abortion while your country is being run by tyrants who are telling you to stay home and get forcibly vaccinated, right? It's like that. Who gives a shit? Big picture, people, and it's easiest to get that. And for anyone to understand that, it is the big picture. What is the big picture here ultimately? And once you see what the big picture is, it's easy to see how all these various people who, for the time being, they probably don't like themselves, each other, and they want to, yeah, they have imperialistic desires and notions of being king or whatever. Yeah, all that is real. But ultimately, however they convince them to do this, they're all on the same team at the end of the day. They're helping to bring in, this is the famous shot, right, of building that gap. Who knows? Maybe there was some important person that lived there, military or otherwise, who needed to be taken out too, right? But apparently this is close to an airport, and a lot of people are speculating the missile just kind of went off course and hit the building, and no one died. Maybe 3 people injured, whatever. It's so hard to know what's true these days, right? Anyway, so yeah, to me, right? And I think it makes sense sometimes to oversimplify this shit rather than get bogged down in the details. That looks like some kind of landing pad, right? Helicopter, something like that. Anyway, so maybe a military installation. Maybe they were trying to hit that, right? Paralyze whatever that is, right? They're showing us that for a reason. Anyway, yeah, the big picture is pretty easy to get, I think, once you cut through all the bullshit and actually look at what's happening. Learn a little bit about the history of these peoples and see that it's the same fucking playbook again and again and again and again. And the people are just getting duped to pick up arms and help them bring in this agenda, right? Because how do you stop this, right? You just stop fighting. Just easier said than done. I get that, but that's how you stop all of it, right? And what's the mainstream media saying? More war, more arms, send in arms, war. What if the Ukrainians were just like, nah, we're not doing this. We're not fighting. Do whatever you want, right? Who gives a shit? What? You're gonna bring in mandatory vax? Lockdowns? Stay-at-home orders? Really? Well, we already got that. We kind of speak the same language anyway. Most of us, or a lot of us, do speak exactly the same language, right? Our culture is very similar, maybe the same. So who gives a shit if it's Putler or fucking Zelensky that's in charge, right? At least Putler doesn't put on fucking high heels and gyrate on the dance floor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, lesser evil, I guess. Right? Just, hey, stop fighting. What? If you just stop fighting, what? They're just gonna shoot you in the back of the head? No, they're not. They're not doing that right now. Just stop fighting. And then what? And then what? Right? But they can't have that. So they have to stoke and they have to give guns to civilians and do all this shit that they're doing. Send kids in. They have and you know, they have to suffer casualties too. It motivates the people, the soldiers on their side to go in and avenge their brothers. Like, come on, man. Sending in fucking kids in Cold War relics, and the West is saying he's weak. On the fucking reconnaissance mission. Man, I'm so sick and tired of this bullshit. And the fact that people can't see the shit for what it really is. So sick and fucking tired of it. That's my longest video. Enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.